Welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 83. I think it's been weeks and weeks since I recorded a show previously, but I've been closing out the season, winning the North American Championships, traveling with the team to boot camp in Korea. Now, we're getting through Korea. I think we're leaving in a few days. And I was able to record a couple small videos about opinions, topics that are kind of up in the scene. So check those out on my YouTube channel. And today I'm going to get back into the questions. So I'm starting today and I'm working backwards. So I apologize for people who asked, a month ago. I was not able to go all the way back to the beginning and just dial up all the questions. I still have them and I might get back to them, but I assume there's going to be more questions coming in. So I'm just going with the 5 most recent ones that I've received. And I'm going to work backwards from there. So make sure to use the hashtag AskWeldon on Twitter or Instagram. You can send me a video or you can send me a text tweet, and I will answer your question on the show. So let's kick it off. First question is from Sword Art Natsu on Twitter, and he asks, "A friend of mine hasn't gotten over tilting for 3 seasons. What should he do to get over it and play to improve?" What should he do to get over it and play to hasn't gotten over it for 3 seasons? So 2 things. First of all, is your friend actually tilting? So there's a big difference between not being good enough and to pull off something and being able to pull off something and then emotionally screwing up and not being able to do it. And so for tilting, I think there's a little bit of mix up between choking and tilting. So I think that's kind of like choking. I think a lot of people talk about tilting and they're talking about, raging and yelling at people and being very emotional and angry and stuff like that. So maybe what you mean is that they get very emotionally invested in the game. What should you do to get over it and play to improve? Well, first of all, you have to ask, does he actually want to improve? I don't think that everybody is powered by the same kind of fuel. So it could be that your friend says he wants to improve. It could be that he even thinks he wants to improve, but if he doesn't want it bad enough to actually improve, then there's not going to be any reason for him to power up his anti-tilting engine, right? So most of the stuff that powers the pros and the reason that they play to improve and will tilt, sure, by the way, the real answer is going to be that you can't not tilt, you have to tilt and then choose to play anyway, choose to play to improve even while you're tilting, emotionally. So that's going to take pretty strong battery, if you know what I mean, lots of juice. So it has to be that you really want it. And of course, over time, you can dial down your emotional reaction to a situation, okay? And that is something that he could be able to do through caring about it less, my mindfulness course, lots of exercise, things in life that matter more to put things in perspective, gratefulness conditioning. There's all sorts of little things you can do over time to kind of dial back on the emotional content of the normal things like stubbing your toe. One of my favorite Iron Man comics of all time was when Iron Man got taken over, body switched by an android. And so he got shoved in the android's body and the android got his human body finally. And then he stubbed his toe and he was like, "Oh, the pain, I can't handle this." And he was like, "What are you talking about? You stub your toe. I do that every 5 seconds." And then they had a little fight and the Iron Man I said Iron Man while I was imagining the black and white War Machine. So that feels kind of bad. I was imagining War Machine, and I said Iron Man because I thought that was War Machine, but whatever. So then War Machine in the android body beats him up a bunch and hits all the little chinks in his armor. They're little ow, punches him in the sternum and kicks his shin. And the guy's like, "You've killed me. You caused so much pain to my body." He's like, "No, those are just the normal aches and pains. They're not a big deal." What you get used to in terms of emotional abuse depends a lot on what you care about, what you want, and what you normally just take, right? So I think probably your friend just when something really bad happens, it'll put it in perspective everything else, right? And you can get that perspective philosophically if you dwell on it a while and if you train yourself for that, but normally it's just life teaches you that. So yeah, a couple steps. First of all, put the stuff that's emotionally tilting him in perspective for long-term growth. Short-term growth, does he really want to play to improve? I would argue no, since he doesn't have the motivation to overcome his emotions and play to improve in the first place. Therefore, he doesn't actually want it. Actions speak louder than fake ambitions, in a way. So you and he should both come to grips with the fact that just it's something that's fun and entertaining for him, and he should stop trying to play to improve and more play to just have fun and find the joy in what he's doing. And that could probably solve the problem, in my opinion. Okay, next question from Cyan Cloud Lowell, and it goes like this. When do you know as a player that you've reached your breaking point, as mentioned before with the TSM players? When do you as a player know you've reached your breaking point? So I'll answer this in terms of what I mentioned before with TSM players. So I'm tracking burnout, which is a specific phenomenon in sport that's been well researched, not really well researched, that's been researched. And the reason is because there's this training kind of cycle, and the typical cycle it's called supercompensation, is the phenomena. It's the theory that explains what goes on. Essentially, you overreach, and then you stop before you break and you recover, and after you recover, you supercompensate. So the idea is that the human body loves homeostasis. We always try to find homeostasis. One of the things that causes adaptation, both mental and physical, muscular and neurological adaptation, is overreaching, so like putting yourself out of homeostasis, and then resting, and then the body attempts to recover to a point where the new normal of like really harsh training is like something you're capable of doing. So it like super compensates and gives you more access to more power, more strength, bigger muscles, more neurotransmitters, more neuron connections for the patterns, etc., in order to prepare for the new normal that it thinks that's there, because you're like overreaching beyond what you're capable of. And then you have to start training again to make that new normal kind of normal. And if you don't, then the body like dials back to homeostasis, like gets rid of the extra neural connections, gets rid of the extra muscle, gets rid of the extra cardiovascular endurance, and puts you back to wherever you are kind of existing. So overreaching and holding yourself there until right before you break is the most optimal way to train. And the way that you track people's breaking is usually injury. That kind of gives you a hint there. Overuse injury. And sometimes acute injury. Acute injuries are more and more being shown in psychological research on sport injuries to be a factor of life stress. So that you're just not paying attention and then you like twist your ankle and oops. So we don't want to go all the way to injury, which means that we're starting to track factors that show that overreaching is coming. One of those is cortisol levels in serum, so in the blood. Another one is your sleep. Kind of, not your sleep like as far as restlessness, but your sleep as tracked by heart rate variability. So the method I use, which is the most kind of informative biological tracking mechanism or method, is heart rate variability. And that you can track with a sleep tracker called EMFIT, EMFIT, which kind of goes under the bed, connects to your Wi-Fi. It's like it's not connected on your body anywhere. It tracks it all without touch. It's just amazing. They used to use it in hospitals to track vital signs of patients, and then the guy, it's a Finnish company, and he developed just a strip that like athletes could use. So if you search like EMFIT QS on Google, there's like a splash page that explains it all. It's also on Amazon. I think you can buy it on Amazon. It's a little expensive, but if you're like an elite athlete, then that's what you want. And then if you're not an elite athlete, then you should be tracking like self-diagnosable symptoms such as interrupted sleep, thirst when you wake up, irritation, inability to handle stress, reduction in performance drops. So I've seen the players' performance drops before we dial back training and go back up. What are some of the other psychological symptoms? Yeah, mostly the most important ones are elevated heart rate, interrupted sleep, thirst when you're waking up. That's more of a muscular thing. So if you're doing a lot of overtraining in sport, you're going to start noticing that. But it does happen in workplace overreaching and in like mental sport. Like I had it happen with a player before. Exhaustion during the day, lack of focus, these kind of things. When your neurotransmitter levels are low and you can't replenish and you're kind of on the point of overtraining. Overreaching is good, overtraining is bad. You want to get to that point in between. So those are the methods that I've used to track their breaking point. Thanks. Next question. The next question is from Shipex, and he asks, do you think that for me, 15-year-old, that it would help watching replays of solo queue matches to climb? Yes. I always include in my ingredients of improvement two things that are essential, the mirror and the model. Okay, so you need a model of like what you want to do because that's the fastest way to get better. Now, we have a really unfortunate situation at the top of League of Legends or any elite sport that exists, which is that when you're at the bleeding edge of performance, there's no model. You just have to like guess at what is possible and hope that it's there and do it. So for example, the first guy who broke the 4-minute mile, we didn't know that it was possible. So he had to like, first of all, imagine that human beings could even possibly do this, which we had, like nobody believed that humans could run underneath 4 minutes in a mile. And until he did it. And then he had to like come up with a way of training that so that it was possible for him. So the first thing is when people have done something that you want to do, use them as a model, and it's a much faster way to get there. Then you need to look at yourself playing like a mirror and compare the results. So you have to watch your own VODs. Just watch through and look at your decision points. Every single action you take, everything that worked well and everything that was punished by your opponent, ask why you made that decision. And then focus on a few learnable outcomes or learnable objectives for the next game that is just beyond what you can do, and try to hold those in your mind in each section of the game in terms of like something like your stretch goals. I'll call it a stretch goal because it's something I want you to stretch, meaning everything that you automatically do plus one additional thing that you can't do forces you to kind of incorporate that into your ability, and before you know it, it's automatic, and then you layer on more and more and more. That's how you build elite skills. So yes, watch replays. And streams, of course, of pros that you want to emulate. Okay, next question is from Thy Unique Hope, and here she asks, decided to move to Korea once college is finished. So, ask Weldon, should I consider a game other than League of Legends due to players not aging well? That's a really good question. At this point, yes. You should consider a sport or a esport where you can pursue expertise in it for like multiple decades. But it doesn't matter that much, because everything that you learn, if you do it correctly and you reflect upon it when you're doing it and you do it with an intentional system, you can always parlay that system into the next thing you do. Okay, so like the fact that League of Legends pros retire and then go on to start successful businesses off of the skill set that they developed when they were pros is not a surprise. And when you see elite athletes like Rick Fox go and star in movies and TV shows or whatever, it's not an accident that they use the same skill set that helped them learn and helped them train and helped them be great, and they apply it to a new realm. So it doesn't, in my opinion, long term, doesn't really matter what you pursue. Pursue something you are most passionate about, because that's where you get the most out of it in the moment, right? And as long as you're pursuing it all in, and you're able to like reflect on it and kind of incorporate a system and kind of figure out who you are in terms of self-awareness and how it is that you do that thing, you can parlay that into the next thing that you do. So like I did my marriage really hard for 5 years, and that's what we worked on, relationships and traveling and making sacrifice for each other and building the kind of rapport that we would need to like properly try to raise children. Try to raise children properly, which is pretty difficult. But that all of that skill set like did not disappear when I started trying to have relationships with other people in terms of like, coaching relationships or father-son relationships. Like all of that was parlayed into the next thing that I did. Is this the right word? Folded? I was thinking parlay like as in you have a conversation with somebody at like a peace treaty. That's not the kind of parlay I mean like folding in. I'm like 99.9% sure. You know how you say a word a couple times and you're like, of course that's what it means. And then all of a sudden you hear it and you're like doubting it and you're like, what does it actually mean? Anyway, doesn't matter. Do what you're most passionate about and don't worry about it. Just focus and all in and like fold everything in your life into understanding what it is that you should be doing. And when you need to drop it, you're not dropping everything that you've ever accomplished. You're just dropping the thing that you were learning, and you're applying everything that you are to the next thing. But you're still that person because you've incorporated all of that you were doing. So when you drop League of Legends, you don't drop like you. Okay. Next question is from Sinister Gaming. Wow, that's a very sinister name. SYNYSTER_gaming on Twitter. And he or she asks, will we be seeing the same iteration of TSM next season? Also loves the series Insight as always. Thank you. I do not know. I currently am not looking at building a roster for next season because I'm trying to win this one. Sorry. Next question is from Alex, 609414. What are your best tips on preparing mentally for an audition in a week? I hope that you asked this recently and my question is actually useful to you, or my answer. What are your best tips on preparing mentally for an audition in a week? Okay. What are my best tips? Number one, get your why really clear. Why are you doing the audition? What does it mean to win? What does it mean to lose? And why is it important to you? And what does it mean? So understand the pressure. I want you to go into the audition, screw up, understand how important it is in that moment, take all of that pressure from the screw up, and recover with all eyes on you, okay, right? So that's really important. It's really, really bad to avoid pressure and hope that you don't mess up, and when you mess up, get all flustered and then be like, oh no, I messed up, and then it flusters you. What you want is intense, zeroed in understanding of why what you're doing, why you are doing the thing, and everybody you're competing against is not doing it as hard as you. Why everybody you're competing against does not have as good enough reason to continue as you, so that when you mess up and you get in that crushing moment of almost defeat, that you clutch it and that you pull it out because you want it more. And that's a way to like deal with flustering and like screwing up, is like understanding why you need to clutch and why you're going to clutch, okay? So first, get straight on that and like start piling on the pressure in your preparation. That's the best thing I can say, because it's not going to disappear on stage. It's not like you're going to go on stage or go to the audition and all of a sudden you're going to be all relaxed and in the zone. That doesn't happen. I mean, it happens, once you're good at it, but you can have 30 years of experience stepping up on stage to perform a solo, and when you step up on stage in the 30th year to perform a solo, neurologically, the same thing is happening in your brain, a lot of it. Biologically, the same stuff is happening in your hormones, okay? So it's not really that you have a different internal chemistry, it's more like you understand what's happening more and you kind of like ride it like a surfer better. So you're a surfer in this case, and I want you to start piling, I want you to go find waves now before the audition and like start surfing, on little beaches. And then when the big wave comes, just be like, whoa! And if you crash, you crash, okay? So then I would do centering exercises. So centering exercises are exercises that you do in the heat of the moment to kind of pull your focus away from the past, where you just screwed up, and the future, where all of your hopes and dreams and ambitions lay, because if you just get this, it would be so amazing, and pulls it back to these now, right now. Center yourself on like the next thing that you have to do. I don't know if you're auditioning for dance or music or a speech or a job or whatever. Whatever it is, the only thing that's really important is what's happening like in the now, in the present, the next thing you're about to do, say play or act. So you have to be able to pull your mind, your focus, which is like distracted, 30% from the past. Take 10% from the future. Put 100% in the now. We were scrimming this morning, and for the feedback of the third game, before we even dealt with any of the strategic and tactical errors that were in the game, before we even dealt with anything at all, I pulled to a moment in the game where it was very clear that people were not on the play that was going on. People were focusing on what had gone wrong before, and probably not the future at all. They were probably just more pissed at what had been going on before. And there was this kind of like, you could tell from the communication, from the body language, that whatever they were doing, it was with 50% focus. Because they couldn't pull it off. Like that play failed too. And then later in the game, they were supremely focused, and they did the comeback plays because they were totally focused on the play. And if you look at the communication, which communication and speech is like a doorway to the mind, you can see what is important to you by what people are talking about or how they're reacting. So the players at that moment were supremely focused on what was going on in this stream of consciousness in the moment, flow of information about everything that was happening. And before, during the first recovery play, right after it had gone wrong, it was just like very dead, kind of like you could tell the internal monologues were directed at kind of what was going on and kind of what had been going on. And as a result, the next play failed too. So you have to do that centering. You have to be able to take a deep breath all the way down to your chair or wherever it is, and just feel that physical movement in the now and realize, oh, there is nothing else. There's no past, there's no future, there's only right now, and that's all that exists. And this is where I need to actually do the thing I'm auditioning for. And if I don't do it here in this moment, then all of my imagining of this perfect audition doesn't matter. And all of the things that I screwed up cannot be repaired. All right. That's the show for today. Thanks for coming out and checking out the show. Please feed me. Give me that oxygen. Give me those comments. And I'll try to reply to them down below on YouTube or on Facebook, wherever you're watching this. And make sure that you submit questions. Hashtag AskWeldon on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm not pulling in the Instagram ones yet, but I promise I will hook that up today if I can. And please check out my sponsors, which is, I don't know if they're on this other side, which is me. I sponsor my own show because I don't have any sponsors. So one thing I'm giving away for free, which is my reading list, because why would I charge for that? Obviously. The 5-Minute Journal is actually a journal that I used with the teams. I bought one for my wife, bought one for me. I think Bjergsen bought one. But the rest of the guys just use a little $2 actual journal that I bought them, blank one, and then I have them go through the 5-Minute Journal protocol every day. It is a very concise way of doing gratefulness conditioning. So there's research in sports psychology on gratefulness conditioning, and we do that very kind of similar, kind of different from the way the 5-Minute Journal does, but the 5-Minute Journal, in my opinion, does it better than kind of the protocols that have been used in sports psychology, because it's just a daily reflection on 3 things that you're grateful for. And it puts you in that, I think that we talked about it before, all the way back in the very first question, puts you in that kind of mindset where you can understand that the little things that are bothering you are a part of life, but they aren't a defining part of life, and your actions don't need to be driven by those emotions. And so you can think of gratefulness as a reset switch for the mind in terms of what is driving you right now. Are you being driven by your emotions? Are you stubbing your toe and then cursing? Or are you being driven by your values, which is I don't want to curse in front of my kids, so you stub your toe and then you don't because you have it in perspective. You're this is nothing compared to, not having a 12-year-old curse at a concert and having all the parents look at me and then feeling like a bad dad. Hope that was a funny example. Okay, and finally my MAC program, which is the Mindfulness Acceptance Commitment Program. Quick synopsis, I guess. I pioneered it in esport, but it was founded kind of fundamentally in 2004 with a book called Mindfulness Acceptance Commitment Program, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it came out of the education research on mindfulness at the time. It was the first person, Gardner and Moore, who brought it to sports psychology, created a program. I adapted it from a 7-week program to an each a day for 7 weeks program. And this is the 3rd version that I've created. It's basically just an online video course, right? 1 video for every day. And the videos are 50-50 split. It's a mindfulness kind of meditation, 5 to 15 to 20 minutes sometimes of focus training for the brain on how to focus on what you want to focus on instead of whatever your brain is randomly focusing on. It's called mindfulness. And then it's like a teaching, 5 to 10 minutes of lecture about the principles, and we go through all of them. Mindfulness, acceptance, and commitment. It's kind of like an onion, so we go through layers. We go through them once, and then again, and we go deeper each time. And it's applicable to esport because it's what I use with the pro teams. And it's really designed for elite performance, but it's really designed for elite functioning, I would say. Not elite performance, elite functioning. So whatever you're doing, whether it's work or hobbies or life or music or business, you can always function with your executive capacities, executive functioning, mental focus, mental motivation, emotional motivation at a higher level. And this is kind of the not the mind hacks and the tricks of how to do it, but actually how the most steadfast and resilient of people around the world do this. So it's not kind of get a nap here, and take a nootropic or nootropic, or write a journal and make a to-do list, and be more organized and manage your time better. It's just about how highly focused, engaged people accomplish great things through resilient application of their desires over time, and what kind of skill set you need mentally to pull that off. And that's what it's all about. So yeah, check that out. It's mindgames.gg/MAC. And although it is in its 3rd iteration of being made, the website that it was on before crashed, and I lost 12 of the worksheets that went with it. So those aren't back up yet, but that's why the price is really low. But it's a lifetime purchase, right? So like as I add it back in and kind of upgrade it, those will pop back in. But the most important part of the training is actually the videos, which are all still there. And there's 47 of them. So check it out. And I will see you guys next time.